Welcome to Prime Space, a Prime Coaching Academy podcast with your host, Elias Scultori. Coaches, I hope you had the time to listen to last week's episode when I talk about coaching mindset and the foundational concepts of coaching mindset. If you have not had the opportunity to listen to that episode, I would encourage you to press the pause button, go listen, and then come back. Because today's episode, it's going to be a continuation of the conversation I had last week. Every time I talk about coaching mindset, coaches come to me and say, Elias, great topic. Love this idea of the coaching mindset. Love this idea of coaching is client-centered. The client is resourceful. Coaching is transformational. It is about developing the person. It's not about finding solutions or solving problems. It's about the discovery process. Love that. However, in practicality, Elias, my clients want results, and they want results fast. They come to coaching because they have a problem, and they want to solve the problem. They don't want to reflect. They want answers. I work with executives. They don't have the time for self-discovery. This is ICF stuff. This is pure coaching. In the real world, it doesn't work. I need to solve problems. And I always chuckle a little bit when I hear that. And at the same time, I feel a bit sad to see this push and pull some coaches experience between these wonderful concepts they admire and they heard so much about in coach training and the reality of their practices. Is this coaching mindset just mumbo jumbo? Is this just utopia? Or is this something real that can be fully embodied in the real world? So I would like to start talking about this by addressing this concept of the problem, the issue, this quagmire that the client may have and may bring to the coaching conversation. What is the real issue? What is the real problem? It's so easy for us to get caught in that story, in the story that the client is bringing to us, in that problem, the details, the emergency of things. Especially when we are working in organizations or when we are working for clients that are in an organizational setting, we have to remember organizations are not made of processes and procedures. Organizations are made of people. And 99% of the time, there is a story, there is an issue, but if we look closely, what is really happening there, what is really behind that issue is the people. The person behind those stories. However, yes, that leader, that client is overwhelmed, overtaken by that situation. Nowadays, every employee is overworked. And yes, it seems that they don't have the time to self-reflect. There is a problem here, and we need to solve it. A coach may go and try to solve that apparent problem. The client is going to feel great. The coach's ego is going to be satisfied because apparently it seems that we brought value to the process. But if we do that, the real growth, the real development, the real issue was not truly addressed. So what happens in that situation? Well, just wait a little bit because another very similar issue is going to surface again and again and again. So, in other words, with that attempt to be efficient, to solve the problem right there, to coming up with a solution, with the instant gratification that that gave us, we actually end up being less efficient, less impactful, and providing mediocre service and value to the client. By relying on our knowledge and experience, the toys that we may have in our toolbox, we actually just created the illusion of effectiveness, but that is only it, right? An illusion, because the critical points were never truly explored. Because the critical points are internal to that individual and personal. So, how do we realistically navigate a situation where, yes, the client is coming and not ready for this level of exploration? Now, a couple of things for us to consider. Sometimes the person is not ready for coaching, and that's totally okay. Sometimes the situation that the client presents, it's not really a matter of coaching in that particular moment. Sometimes what the client needs is a consultant, is a mentor, is a trainer. So first of all, do we know the difference? Do we clearly know the difference between coaching, consultancy, mentoring, training? Because there is a very clear difference between all of these four modalities. So first is for us as coaches, the professional, to be very clear about what this is and what the client is asking for. And then if we have the skills, to provide what the client is asking. Okay, they're asking for some consultancy. Let me be the consultant. Let me label this process as a consulting process. Let me label this process as a mentoring process. Let me label this process as a training process. And offer to the client what the client is asking for instead of masking it with coaching and then murking the waters. And actually not even being ethically sound with the client because we are offering something that is not what we agreed upon. So let's be clear. What is the need right now? What is the need for this situation? And if I am able to provide those services, let me provide those services, but be true to what is the service that I am providing to the client. Another situation is that sometimes the building is on fire. There is an emergency. And in that emergency, like we can't just sit down and think like, okay, what is the source of this fire? What are we going to do to make sure that this fire doesn't happen again? No, the building is on fire. We need to address this immediately. But that does not necessarily mean, and that is the distinction here that we need to be mindful of, that does not necessarily mean that if there is an emergency that I am going to immediately provide my expertise. Remember, our clients, especially when we are dealing with executives and high-level managers in an organization, they are experts. Hopefully, they didn't get their job just because of their looks. They earned it. And that's when I get concerned because oftentimes coaches jump in too quickly in providing answers and expertise and knowledge. But actually, they are cannibalizing the process and stealing from the client the opportunity for them to take ownership and resolve the situation. We crowd the space with our own stuff, with our own need to provide value, and we don't even give the space for the client to do their work. Often, when coaches jump in too quickly and stay in the problem solving mode, it's not about the client. It is because we lack the skills and the commitment to deepen our own understanding of the core proposition of coaching and what the coaching mindset is all about. We use the client's emergencies and the client's lack of time as an excuse for us not to develop our own coaching skills. Oh, the client asked for that. They wanted a strategy. They wanted tips and answers. They wanted to hear my perspective. So I gave the client what they asked for. Isn't coaching client-centered? And then I ask, where is your listening? The client may have asked for that, but was that what the client was really looking for? What did you do to open the door for the client to see the situation more clearly, to see themselves more clearly through their own resources? What was the invitation for serious work? Not simply building strategies, but raising real awareness. What did you do in that moment to raise the bar for the client? And to me, that is what coach training is all about. Supporting each coach to first learn the power and the value of this mindset I talked about last week, but second, to have the skills not only to ask a powerful question or to establish a session agreement, but especially to hold the space, to keep the door open for the client to see the value of this work. In coaching, we need to provide a lot of education to our clients on an ongoing basis. And education does not mean that we are going to be talking about coaching or what coaching is or is not. That we sometimes do this at the beginning of a coaching process, but on an ongoing basis, education happens in that moment when we hold the space. We remain silent. We give the client the opportunity to step up. The moment we remain curious rather than relying on knowledge. This is a coaching skill in itself. Dancing in the moment, supporting and meeting the client where they are, but not falling into the lure of I know. Look how good I am by providing you with this solution, with this knowledge. Because we know that the best value we can offer our clients is the space and the opportunity to see themselves more clearly so they can choose how they want to proceed. That is the challenge for us, to develop the skills of listening, presence, language, so that we can dance with our clients, always holding firm to the core concept of our coaching mindset. That is where we can provide the best value to our clients. And that is where we will best succeed in our coaching practices. Amy here at Prime Coaching Academy, Amy Donovan, she always says that clients come for the what, but they stay for the who. In other words, clients come with problems. Clients come with situations. But if we open the door for them to take a closer look at who they are, what is truly happening inside, how they are relating to their context, they will want nothing else. And this is going to help the sustainability of our practice. This invitation, this opening the door for the client, this holding this coaching mindset, this is the road less traveled, we as coaches are invited and challenged to take in every conversation we have with our clients. That is the innovative and the disruptive aspect of coaching. And so let's not dilute this practice by jumping in too quickly with knowledge. Let's instead commit to polishing first our understanding of this mindset and then our skills in presenting it to our clients. So I will leave you with that for today. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear your thoughts on what I'm sharing here at Prime Space. Don't forget to subscribe and to share this with other coaches. And I will see you next time.